I'm not actually supposed to buy books at the moment, just because you can see I already have a little bit of an issue. I'm actually about to go outside and do some yard work, so that's why I'm dressed like this, looking like a hobbit. But before I do that, I wanted to share my book haul from yesterday with you. Now, I'm not supposed to actually buy too many books or do any book hauls because, I mean, look at this. You can see that I've got a slight issue going on in terms of shelf space. But the books that I got, like, I've already read them and I liked them, or they were books that I would need to have for a long time in order to finish them, and I was planning to read them anyway. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So the first book is Becky Chambers' Monk and Robot Duology. It's the first time I've seen it in one volume, and I've been wanting to own it for a long time. I read this as an ebook on Libby and really loved it. However, Libby as an app, I love Libby for its easy access, but it is harder to do in-depth reading with Libby, and I really wanted to pay this book the attention it deserves. I really love Becky Chambers. Everything she writes is like chef's kiss. So this is a book that doesn't have a lot of conflict. It has a lot of discussion. If you need something that's a warm hug or a metaphorical warm hug, I would highly recommend this. Next up is Nikolai Gogol's Dead Souls. I heard about this on BookTube. I think it was from Emmy, and the blurb really did intrigue me. So it's about a stranger who comes into this Ukrainian town, then it was part of the Russian Empire. He meets with all these important people, and whenever he meets them, he asks, do you have any serfs who are dead but still on record, whose names I can appropriate? Now, when you hear about this sort of thing in the modern age, you're going, identity theft. But why does he want to steal the identities of serfs? So that's the big mystery, and that's really interesting. I actually sat down in the bookshop and read a whole chapter of this before I bought it, just to make sure that the style agreed with me. I'm really looking forward to reading this. And then lastly, we have The Bridge on the Drina by Andrić. I probably pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry. It's set in the history of Bosnia, which has been the crossroads of many empires and civilizations over the centuries. This book in particular is set in a small, sleepy town or village that's near the river Drina. And the story of this society and this village is told through a bridge that they use very often and what happens on it. And this really interested me because I've never read anything from Bosnia before except for these memoirs about people escaping out of Sarajevo during the Civil War. And that was when I was far too young to understand what the Bosnian Civil War was, what Bosnia was even. I was just like 8 years old and I read all of those stories about Sarajevo and I didn't know what it was. And this book kind of covers the part of Bosnian history when it was switching over from being part of the Ottoman Empire and then into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Like, we know what happens to the Austro-Hungarian Empire after it takes over Bosnia. There's the Balkan crisis, and then that leads to the First World War and the fall of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So a lot of things happen to this little place. It's a melting pot of Muslims, Christians, Jews, various traders. It's on the Silk Road. So it's like all these cultures coming together to be a society. Just to round off this video, we have a small reading update. This week, I took a little break from Charles Dickens to read Durian Sukegawa's Sweet Bean Paste. It's a story about a former inmate who's come out of jail, and because he's got this criminal record, it's really hard for him to find work. He ends up working at this dorayaki shop, and dorayaki is a Japanese sort of pancake with some sweet bean paste in the middle. I don't know if you've ever seen the cartoon Doraemon, but that was the show that I grew up with, and the main character, Doraemon, is obsessed with these pancakes. It's more than just a story about food, although obviously food plays a big part in the book. It's a story about isolation. So Sentaro, the main character, is isolated from society because he's a former inmate with a criminal record. The old woman that he meets and who offers to work for him for very cheap, making sweet bean paste, is isolated because she had contracted leprosy as a child and that left her fingers deformed. She still lives in the sanitarium where she was when she was ill. And then the third character, Wakana, a young high school girl, she is isolated from society because her parents are divorced and she isn't very well off. So in that way, she's kind of separated from her peers in terms of experience, and she's quite lonely. So these three lonely people find each other, and I'm really curious to see where that will go. Also, it's really interesting to learn more about Japan's policies towards people with leprosy. Like, I was so surprised to hear that they didn't end the leprosy segregation policy or act until 1996, because the cure for leprosy existed long before that. It's quite an easy read, so if you need something just to get you back into reading, something that you can finish over a weekend, I would highly recommend this book for it. So yeah, that's my reading for this week.